Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and today we are going to be talking about the third choice in the community survey with regards to the Wilds of Eldraine's deck. Of course, that is Golgari Food, and as always, we're doing this because around here, you matter. But before we get into all that, thank you to all my new and prior followers on Twitch, helping us get one step closer to affiliate status. And one of those lucky followers picked up 2 starter decks for their arena collection. My next big project here at the Stronghold is going to be to launch a Discord server featuring all sorts of chat channels about deck brewing, meta formats, helping you find a pairing for your own game, as well as channels to simply be social, find help, streaming, and special content. But to make this happen, I'm going to need the help of at least 10 people to step up and make a pledge of $1 or more per month over on Patreon. And hey, for only $1 a month, it's a lot of value, so make sure you're checking it out. And there's even a lot of content there that isn't released anywhere else, even for people who are not supporting on Patreon. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Alright, so let's take a look at the deck here, and I've actually kind of organized it by how accessible the cards are, as opposed to functionality. So a little different approach today. Let me know what you think down in the comments as always. I'm going to start with the land base. We kept it pretty basic with 18 swamps and forests, and of course the numbers on those are going to change according to the individual decisions that you make based on your collection and the adjustments to the overall list. But for the list that I'm presenting, that seems to be about the right way to go. We also have Llanowar Wastes in here. This, of course, is the rare dual land from this year's starters, so everybody should have at least 1 copy to that. I don't usually recommend rare dual lands, but in this case, Restless Cottage fits the theming of this deck because it produces food. And of course, this is very much a food matters deck. Of course, foods are also artifacts and tokens, so it kind of blends itself into some other thematic areas as well, and we'll see more on that as we go. Plaza of Heroes, of course, is one of those lands I think everybody should have 1 copy of, particularly if you enjoy Brawl or Historic Brawl, because it leans into that legendary creatures matter theme very nicely and rewards that and creates a little added utility. And of course, what I think is one of the best investments of a rare wild card as far as a land base is 1 or 2 copies of Thran Portal, as it functions very similarly to a Pain land and helps you smooth out your mana curve in a variety of ways in a variety of decks, because this card, of course, can go into any 2-color combination. Alright, from there I want to skip over to the opposite end of our deck here. And here we've got some uncommons from last year and the year prior that are really punching above their weight. One of those, of course, is High Speed Hoverbike. It's an artifact. It's also a vehicle, so it dodges removal. As long as it's not crude. At the moment, it's not technically a creature. Very low mana cost there on the Hoverbike, and its ETB trigger of tapping down a creature just adds to utility. Whether you're talking about many of the Artifact Matters decks or whatever, this is a very sneaky way to use an uncommon to get a little bit more leverage there. Of course, Patchwork Automation from the 2022 Kamigawa set is, well, this is the epitome of artifacts matter. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Automation. Of course, keep in mind, some things trigger on casting for artifacts matters, others when they come into play. So for instance, this one is a little less of a heavy hitter in this deck because, of course, as foods get created, it's not necessarily triggering the automation. Of course, Atrex's Skitterfang is another heavy hitter here for an uncommon. I had someone recently compared this to a... And next up, we've got all the rares, commons, and uncommons that come to us from the current Wilds of Eldraine set. Of course, Gingerbrute is an almost must-have for the green artifacts matter. It's also a food. It's a common. It can be unblockable. It can gain you life. It's so many different variations there. Witch's Vanity is kind of my removal of choice here. Not only is it a saga, so it sticks around a little bit, but it starts by being a very specific removal spell. Then it creates a food token, then it creates a roll token. So just a lot of value here over time for 2 mana, and that's how synergy decks win games, is by creating value over time. From here, of course, I think everyone is familiar with Tough Cookie. This is another one of those must mono green artifacts matter cookies deck. All of these are using these. I think it's very accessible. I don't think this is a card you're going to need to craft. But if you are looking at this later in the year where maybe you didn't have as much access to Wilds of Eldraine, this is one of those cards that might very well be worth crafting. Of course, Welcome to Sweet Tooth is one of the signature cards for the Golgari Food deck. It creates a human token, then it creates a food, triggering many of your Artifacts Matter synergies, and then it gives +1/+1 in the form of counters to a target creature you control, where X is the number of foods you control. And as you can see, a lot of things in this deck just are food or create food, and that can just really get out of hand in an Alpha Strike situation. Syr Ginger is very much in the same boat as Gingerbrute, but as a rare. I'm not sure how many of these are going to make the final budget list, but it's certainly worth exploring that. Iron Crag is one of those universally good rares this year that allows you to ramp over some things. Whether this ultimately makes the cut or not remains to be seen, but it also taps into the legendary matters aspects, and I think this deck has 5 different legends in it, if memory serves. I know there's at least 4, one of which is Greta Sweet Tooth Scourge. This is the signpost uncommon for this deck. 3 mana, 3/3 is great stats to start with. She creates a food token as she comes into play. You can pay a green and sacrifice a food to put a +1 counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery, or you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice a food to draw a card and lose 1 life. So she just brings so much utility to the board. Very, very nice. Ozolith is, of course, the beginning of the cards that we recognize from our new player experience, and that's kind of the theme of this. I am running 2 copies despite the fact of me knowing that you only have 1, because this card could also fit over here into column 2 as a card that is easily accessible through Jump In. So having 2 copies of this card is really fantastic. It, of course, is an artifact itself. It puts counters on things, and it doubles the amount of counters that go on. So a great utility piece for a deck like this. Quarian Beastcaller is another one of those cards that loves counters, loves creatures coming into play. Gix, of course, is a legendary creature in his own right, one of several within the deck. Great stats as a 3/3 for 3 mana, and has the potential to allow you to draw cards based on combat success. Gleesa Sunslayer is probably the best Golgari card in the new player experience, so you know she was going to have a place here. The combination of a 3/3 body for 3 mana is great baseline stats. And then when you add in the combination of her strike and death touch, really a difficult piece that must be answered or it will completely disrupt your board. And of course, on combat success, you get a number of options from drawing a card and losing a life, destroying target enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. Just creates a lot of potential value within her. Pylon is a nice rare removal piece from your starter set. Gix's Command is almost Wrath style effect. It can also put counters on things, and of course your opponent sacrifice creatures and return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So just a fantastic utility piece from your starter collection. Breach the Multiverse. I don't think I've ever resolved this card in a game and not one. Usually as an almost direct result, it just provides so much value, milling cards and then allowing you to put 2 things onto the battlefield, one from your opponent and one from your graveyard. Very, very nice. And of course, another good piece of removal, Black Sun's Twilight, X and black. Up to 1 target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. So it dodges a lot of resistances and indestructibilities and things like that. And of course, if X is 5 or more, return a creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard directly to the battlefield, which again can have all kinds of different consequences. Because of course, if you were to return a Greta, she is also going to create a food token and create a pump value for your Elvish Archivist and your Teething Wormlet, just wrecking combat map. Last card from the starter new player experience is Urborg Repossession. This is another one of those return something from the graveyard to your hand. It also allows you to gain life potentially. Very nice stuff here, and just fits very well, particularly for a card that you already own. And before we go, I want to take just a moment to thank all of my patrons and remind the community when we hit just 10 patrons at any level, we will be rolling out Discord for the entire community, not just paid patrons. So if you have the means or mind to do so, consider supporting our community as it continues to grow. And of course, supporting the community by liking, commenting, subscribing, or sharing our videos is always appreciated. And you will appreciate subbing to the channel so you never miss out on a thing. And of course, we have some suggestions here on the next videos that you're going to want to check out.